Rogue Warriors, a modern warfare skirmish game by Lee Fox Smith and Nicholas Fox Smith, published by Skirmish Games. Lee, I think it's Lee, it's one of these two, has a YouTube channel, and that's where I discovered this. A lot of really good detail, goes into very good detail. I'm not going to go into huge detail today. It's going to be a bit of a flip through, an introduction, because we are going to put this on the table before too much longer. But I wanted to introduce you to the rules today so we can save time on the battle reports, the live action, let's play kind of videos. Not quite a review, as we believe here in the House of Wargaming. Can't really review a game that you haven't played. We're going to focus a little bit on... today's video is going to be about half on the game and half on the marketplace of ideas. And just a kind of a dog's breakfast of a video today. Just want to get that out of the way right up front. Because I got this on Amazon for like, I don't know, like $15, $18. Slender tome. It's only about 39 pages. Let's see. It says here it's 39 pages. And as we do these days, made in the US of A. God bless America. So look at that. Already we got a couple of positives, couple of good reasons to buy this outside of the quality of the game. Nicholas Fox Smith is the son of Lee Fox Smith. And given from what I've seen on the on his channel over on YouTube, I think this is one of those like proud papa helping his kid along. I don't think this is an old man and a young man. This is not like a boomer millennial situation. I think it's probably more like a young millennial and young zoomer. So, you know, the family thing, oh, that's great. And of course, we love to see the old made in the USA. Save the money, prove that the hobby will survive anything that the international order can throw at it. And it can also survive our attempts to push back against the international order, the chaos of central management. So before we get too deep into it, this is a slender tome. And why is it worth $18? Well, you know, maybe it's not, but it's a little bit of an investment because this is one of those games that is very much like Song of Blades and Heroes or Joe McCullough, his oeuvre, right? Joe McCullough has one great rule system. And I've probably bought it 4 or 5 times, and I've barely scratched the surface of the Joe McCullough. He's the guy behind Frostgrave, easy for me to say, and the Fantasy Napoleonic one, and Rangers of Shadow Deep, which you've seen here on the channel. Got a whole playlist for that. The same core mechanic. This modern warfare skirmish game has a core mechanic. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit, but first, I'll point out that I spent $18 on this, and I thought, oh, you know what, though? I scratched my head, scratch. And I thought, oh, I'm a solo wargamer. Does this work for solo wargamer? Yeah, it does, but you need a supplement. So, old Lee and Nick, they soaked me for another like $15, $20 because I had to buy Ungentlemanly Warriors, a Rogue Warriors solo campaign. Bit of a marketing aside here. Rogue Warriors, interesting choice. Google this. Hard to find the war game. Ungentlemanly Warriors. I think there was a movie out recently about how the British committed war crimes, but it's cool because when you win, it's not a war crime. It's just an effective tactic. It's a war crime when you lose. And as you can see, as you could probably guess from this is a World War II campaign. In fact, if we open up and just do a quick flip through, it's explicitly a 2-player campaign. Kind of the missions here have 2 teams, and one of them is, maybe I can actually find the page. Well, I'm getting a little too deep into it. I don't like World War II for a variety of reasons. I don't like the historicity of it. I don't like the way that it's been written about. I don't like the fact that it's, well, I don't want to get too deep into politics. I'm going to have to reskin this if I use these. However, solid core solo rules. Even if you don't like World War II gaming, you got to pick this up, because he has some really interesting solo ideas that we'll get to in a little bit. And then I thought, well, wait a minute. I got a huge collection of science fiction figures. Why don't I go ahead and just throw another $15? Oh, my goodness. Crack dealer Lee and Nick. I thought I was in for $15. Now he's got me in for the full 40. And by the way, he's got like another 5 or 6 titles. He's got a really fun, he's got a bunch of like modern and near modern style games, World War II. So I picked up Evolution for the sci-fi supplement. I doubt we're going to see the Black Raven using these rules, and you'll understand why once we get into the rules themselves here shortly. How many times have I bought Song of Blades and Heroes, the same set of rules? But, and this is in part, it's not a condemnation, it's just an observation. If you want to make money in this industry, Go easy on the start, sell the core, and then start slapping on the supplements. So am I on the supplement treadmill? Maybe, if the game is fun enough. If you're content to play in the sandbox, and it's 4-on-4 mostly, by the way. Again, we'll get into that in a little bit. This is all you need. Hours of good gaming. But if you want additional campaigns, and I would put, from what I've read at least, we'll have to play them to see how they operate, but from what I've read, Lee is up there with Joe McCullough when it comes to evocative, interesting scenarios that go outside the box. And I think I can demonstrate that here for those of you watching and are tired of looking at this really cool art. When I show you that the core game itself has, look at this. This is all of the different deployment zones. I've seen a lot of different books with a lot of different deployment zones. Man, this just completely runs the gamut. He runs out of letters. Look, it goes Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, all the way down to X-Ray. And then you're like, wow, that's almost, 6 times. That's 24. He's out of letters. So then he goes back to Yankee Zulu. That's 26. And then we go to Alpha 1 through 10. There's 36 different deployment zones alone. And then he does a really cool thing. It's very much like who's not Andres Filio? Who's the guy that did the 5 parsecs, the 5 men in Normandy? The same kind of thing. Hey, look, here's a roll a D66 5 times. So here's your prompt. It's a prisoner exchange standoff in a village. The goal is to strike at a satellite, and the enemy is bandits, right? And then you can deploy using Tango. So prisoner exchange, but this is your deployment zone. That's a little nutty, right? Why? And the question of why is this our deployment zone as we do our prisoner exchange, which is secretly meant to be a hit on the leader of either the red team or blue team? Cool stuff. Look at this one, right? This is obviously an ambush. X-Ray, I don't think I've seen one quite like this before. Very creative, very interesting. Let's talk a little bit about the rules now. And again, all 3 of these tomes are pretty slender, but he's got a couple of other campaigns out there. He's got one that is based on the movie Navy SEALs. So kind of a Counter-Strike anti-terrorism thing. And that's pretty good for just a brief introduction, a brief analysis, not a complaint, just interesting. He will probably, if he sells enough of these, I would suspect old Mr. Foxsmith. I wonder about the hyphen though. If you're watching this, can you explain? Is this hyphen because? One other thing, is this because you were raised by a mom and a dad that hyphened, or is this? I'm always curious about this kind of construction. I mentioned that I got these on Amazon. If you go look up what else he's written, because you're like, oh, what all supplements are there in addition to these and the Red Dragon or whatever that is? What else does he have? He's got a couple of books that are all about veganism. And hold on, settle down. I see your finger hovering over the next button. The Lord chooses imperfect instruments to work his will. Okay? King David was a notorious lech. He doesn't have to be perfect to produce a good game. We're not going to judge him for his quirky outside the box, religious views. Okay? If people did that to me, I would laugh at them because, we all know you're going to stand before judgment on your own and you got no excuses. And who knows? There is at least a chance, I'll credit him with this, there's at least a chance he's right. And St. Peter says, yo, John, I know those steaks were tasty, but I'm going to have to ask you to step onto the little trapdoor to the left. It's possible. I doubt it. But, again, don't freak out when you see that because it doesn't really bleed over. I've already bled politics over into this video more than he ever has with the Wargaming. So he's a better man than I. What can I tell you? Anyway, let's talk about the rules. That's enough about life, the universe, and everything. What we're really here to talk about is miniature wargaming, and wouldn't you know it, I have one right here in my hot little hands. But what, I hear you ask, 9 minutes into the video, is this game all about? How does it work? And I'm not quite there yet because I want to show you something really interesting. We already talked about that. This is stock art, but it's really well put together, really well laid out. And I want to show you, this is interesting. He says, look, when you start a scenario, put your team together, and before each mission, select an area of expertise. Now, this is interesting because in most games, they say put together a team of raiders or counterinsurgents or hostage rescues. before, and there's some interesting aspects of exactly when you choose this, but you can choose a different thing each time. And Lee, I'm just going to say Lee and Nick, they ask you to choose one of these, and these are each power-ups. But notice, Raider, rapid movement, counterterrorism. They're adept at neutralizing threats in high-stakes situations. Covert ops, the shadows are the domain. Reconnaissance. Notice, there's no mechanics in here. This is all fluff. This is all lore if you're a nerd. Likewise, specialist. Now that's different each time, which is unusual. I really like that. Do you choose that before you even know what the scenario is? I'm not sure. We'll have to answer that later. Specialist. Now this is something that you do pick. You assemble a team of balanced and effective guys. Could be tactician, medic, sniper, hand-to-hand combat, demolitions. All of these things, like you can already guess from the title, medic. Gee, I wonder what special ability the medic will have. You're not an idiot. You know what it is, but there's no mechanics written here. Close quarters battle. I think that's interesting. You turn the page, and then he actually gets into the game itself. You're going to have missions. Everything is theater agnostic, miniature agnostic if you prefer. And miniature agnostic. Use whatever you like, okay? So then you put together a team of 4. It's like I said earlier, I hope I said it earlier, kind of important. Generally a 4-on-4, that's the core game. 4 elite special forces, and they could be LRPs if you're playing in Vietnam. They could be the SAS if you're playing in WWII. They could be CIA operatives if you're playing in the sandbox. Although, like we said, these are supposed to be elite, so maybe Delta Force is a better example of that. I would think that the like elite CIA guys, but again, we're getting into politics. I have contempt for the CIA because they hate me and my countrymen. There are 3 kinds. There are warriors, there are enlisted, and there are regulars. Is it enlisted or is it elite? Yeah, enlisted and recruits. So the stats are pretty simple here. Everybody moves 5 inches. Oh, God, man, I probably should have started with this. Simple stat line, lots of skills, power-ups, and penalties. Like Song of Blades and Heroes, right? Very simple. Song of Blades is 2, fighting and morale. This one gives you movement. It's 5 unless you have the skills. Then you have Hearts, which is life. Very video game evocative. Completely understand why you're using that dialect. Hits on, so this is shooting. And then you have MDP, which is fighting. So when you hit, you roll D6s, and you're hitting on, for the elite warriors, you're hitting on 4-ups. For your regular enlisted, it's 5-ups. And for your recruits, your militia guys, it's going to be hitting on 6-ups. So anytime you shoot, you're doing your hits on, and then MDP is close quarters battle. For warriors, you roll 5d6. For regular, you roll 4, and for enlisted, it's 4, and for regulars, it's 3. Also, when you move into combat, when it's your activation, you get an extra die. So an enlisted guy fighting a warrior, but the enlisted guy initiated the combat, it's his activation, you're going to be rolling 5-on-5. Of course, there are other modifiers that add and subtract dice, and if you have a friend helping you, you're going to get a bonus die because, bros help bros. That's pretty much all it is, right? So 3 stats. Again, movement's 5 inches unless you have a skill. And that's where you then get into, then you pick your specializations. And look, medic starts with 3 med kits. Oh, I wonder what a med kit does. Move into contact, heal some wounds. By the way, the Hearts is 6 hits for the warriors, 3 for the enlisted, and 2 for the regular. That's how many wounds you can take before you're eliminated from the table. The morale system, In a game like this, I don't think you really need it. These are elite warriors. They're going hard the whole time. Then you equip with weapons, and now you get into a situation where, ranged attack dice, how many times do you roll? A submachine gun, you're going to roll 5 dice on the attack. They only do 1 damage. All right, most of these things are going to do 1 damage. It is a roll to hit, roll to wound, roll to save situation. I take it back. It's a roll to hit, and then for every time you hit, you get a save. And some of these, like a shotgun, has armor piercing of -1, so your save roll is going to be at -1. And then again, as you might expect. Now, an interesting thing here, sniper rifle has a minimum range of 6 inches. If you're closer than 6 inches, it's not going to do you any good. Very interesting. Auto D3 damage of hit, meaning when it hits hard, but you have to make a reload action. Now we get into the actual game itself, and it gets a little bit wonky here because he uses this thing where he sets up packages. And this is pretty typical, and I think he kind of moves away from this later on. It's an interesting idea. I'm not sure how well it works in practice, though. So you have move and shoot, move and melee, move and run. And then you have aim and shoot and melee attack. If you're in base-to-base contact, you have to do package 5. Well, okay. So throughout the course of the rules, he, at least in the core rules, he will refer to, oh, you have to use package 3. And I'm like, wait, which one is 3 again? Is that move and shoot? But like, I get why you use this nomenclature, but it's a little clunky. I am not. I'm going to abandon that as fast as possible. Pretty simple, right? You can move, you can shoot. If you move, you can then shoot, which allows you to do. And some guys have the skill that they can pop out, shoot, and get back into cover. But, you know, you have a limited number of skills. If you can do that, there's something else you can't do. Move and run. Now, remember I said everybody moves 5 inches. If you run, you move an additional D6. So you have the guaranteed 5, and if you want to move faster than that, then we have the random movement to see how well you do. Maybe the footing isn't great. Maybe you're not as brave as you thought you were. Maybe because you're running into danger, this is where there's a little bit of morale in there. And then, of course, aim and shoot just means you're adding +1 to your shooting attack. Okay, and then package 5, obviously, melee attack. If you're already in contact with the guy, see, and then he shows what that looks like, just in case you didn't know. Now, he does provide a lot of interesting, this is kind of core stuff that you guys don't really concern yourselves with because, you know, you've seen it a million times, right? When it comes to movement, you measure from front to front or back to back, right? Whatever point you're measuring from, you measure the same point at the start and end of your move. It's a move up to 5 inches, by the way, and you can snake around obstacles. When you measure ranges, it's from base to base. This, I think, is pretty helpful, particularly in a game that demands a lot of three-dimensional terrain, right? You measure the diagonal distance for range, not the horizontal distance. If you are more than 1 inch above the other model, you're considered in contact even though your bases aren't touching. Interesting little clarification just to avoid any kind of confusion. Very clear example of the difference between light cover, which means when I shoot at you, I'm at -1, versus heavy cover. When I shoot at you, I'm at -2. Some guys have rerolls. You only ever get one reroll. You can't reroll a reroll. Once you pick up the dice and roll them again, that roll stands. Like I said, you're going to designate the target of a shooting attack, apply your modifiers. Every result of a 4 up is a hit. All shooting attacks made by warriors hit on a 4 up. Remember, that's warriors. These are the elite guys. For the enlisted, it's 5, and for the regulars, it's 6. Oh, by the way, 1s are always a miss, 6 are always a hit. Even if I need a 7 to hit you, I hit on a 6. If I need an 8 to hit you, I can't hit you at all. Okay. Likewise, if you have no clear line of sight, you can't shoot a guy. But if you hit, then you go to the armor save. And the armor save is pretty simple. This is kind of a combined armor and wound mechanic. He calls it armor because armor can help you on this die roll. But ultimately what happens is on a 1 or a 2, you take a damage, you lose 1 heart. On a 3 or 4, you're pinned. And on a 5 or a 6, you're fine. It's just a flesh wound, right? I don't even care. So what does pinned mean? And this is where things get really interesting because I always struggle with modern rule sets to understand why pinning is so important. It's just a mental block that I have. I spend too much time doing fantasy and pre-black powder or even into the black powder era until you get to the modern era where you're just throwing a huge weight of metal around. Pinning always just kind of escapes me. Oh, by the way, I kind of forgot something really important. Activation. We'll circle back around to that. Let me finish the thought here first. Wouldn't that be novel for me? Obviously, this is an equal chance of damage, pinning, and protection. What does pinning mean? Well, that's a really good question. And I think I like this implementation because it's very simple. You get 1 pin marker and you're done. You can't be pinned multiple times. All that pinning means is on your next activation, you cannot move. You can still shoot. You can still shoot back at a guy. You just can't move. After your activation is over, you take the pin marker up. Unless you get hit again. And now is probably a good time to talk about the interrupt system and the whole activation system because this is kind of important. It's so important that it's buried back here in the missions. We'll get to that. Let me just finish the gameplay. I'll present it in the same order that Lee and Nick presented it. For melee, you take your dice. We talked about how you get your melee attacks. If you have a really big melee weapon, maybe you get extra dice. If you have a bro helping you out, you get an extra die. And remember, it's this guy's activation. He gets a +1 die because of him. And then when this guy activates, he's going to get a +1 because of his friend. It's dangerous to go alone. Take a bro with you. Roll your dice, line them up from highest to lowest, and anytime you win, you inflict a hit on the other player. He takes 1 damage. I don't think armor applies here. Yeah, for each loss, warrior suffers 1 damage. Ignore ties, and then for every unmatched die, that's going to count as an automatic hit. Oh, that's pretty nice. So if I have 5 dice and you have 3, I'm automatically hitting you 2 times, which means it's really likely. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to take you out. It just means I'm going to be able to do more damage. Hey, I'm better at fighting than you. Them's the breaks, buddy. So in this case, you apply modifiers. Sometimes maybe get a +1 to the die roll. So if red has a +1 to the die roll, he wins here, 7 to 5. He wins here, 7 to 4. This is a tie for nothing. He wins here, 4 to 3, and then he loses here and here. So it's going to be 3 to 2. That's it. And then, when you're out of wounds, you're done. Pretty simple. And then you stay in contact until everybody has, at the end of the, you just stay in contact until somebody's dead, basically. I don't see anyway. Target can add 1 die for each friendly, and the attacker can add 1 die for each attacker friendly. Yeah. Okay. So I haven't played this, so I have some questions at this point that I don't have the answer to. And rather than go look up the rule and do you a solid, I'm just gonna soldier on. So now we can talk about the order of play. Now that you understand how the game is generally played, with a few little wrinkles we need to resolve yet. Order of play, activations. You play rounds, he calls them, right, or turns. The unlimited number of rounds, unless specified in the mission brief, of course. All models must be activated. So you activate 1 at a time, alternating in an I go, you go. So I do 1, you do 1, I do 1, you do 1. There's a chance the players can gain the upper hand. By the way, the one thing I should point out is I go and then you go. If your figure hasn't moved yet, he's on Overwatch. I've seen this in a couple of games. I think it's brilliant. He's on Overwatch. If you move across my line of fire, my guy is not going to stand there like a dope and just watch him run. He can take a pot shot. If he does, his turn is over. If he's out in the open, he may decide to let you run because he doesn't want to expose himself to the next guy popping out and shooting at him. You only get 1 activation, but you do have that free interrupt, which I think is nice. And then the other little wrinkle here, very interesting, you win the initiative. So you're going to activate one of your guys. You make an activation roll. So before you choose, it says, before you even choose, you roll a d6. And on a 1, I get to choose which of your guys goes. So 1 time in 6, the chaos of battle erupts, and rather than taking the shot with a sniper that you were hoping for, I say, no, why don't you activate this guy over here who's just kind of twiddling his thumbs? And then you say, darn it, because you rolled a 1, but it's your fault. If you didn't want me nominating this guy over here, you shouldn't have rolled a 1. Don't blame me for your bad luck. So then you move this guy, and now I get to, shoot at your sniper before he shoots at me. Oh, unless I roll a 1, in which case you nominate somebody else. Of course, if all of my guys have gone, then, or if 3 of them have gone and it's my turn and I'm moving my last guy, you don't need to roll that die. But I think that's really interesting. Then at the end of, because it's not just a simple I go, you go. Really interesting wrinkle in there. At the end of each round, check to see if objectives were met, blah, 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 right? Oh, did I win or not post game? And then you have your little campaign system. And I want to talk about that just real quick too. We'll have to play a couple of one-offs before we do. There are rules for swarm scenarios where you just keep sending waves of regulars, those militia guys, at a core team. Like every turn, 6 of them come on. Now they're terrible, but they come on like each turn they come on and they have like 1 warrior with them. It's like 1 warrior plus D6 regulars, and you just have to kind of eat that and meet your objectives while holding them off, right? So 4v4 is the core, but there's reasons, and particularly here in the solo game, why you would have the kind of intermediate between the elites and the scrubs. For the campaign rules, you do something rather interesting. You put together and I'm not going to talk, we'll talk more about the solo later, but you assemble a team. And in this case, you're assembling a team of 10 guys. Right? You'll need to assemble a team for each mission. Complete step 6 to 7 to assemble your mission team. Where's step 6 to 7? Yeah. You equip them with weapons and with gear. Now, I have my elite squad, or is it 2 squads, maybe 10 guys, 2 fire teams, whatever. And then you go through all of the scenarios, and you have the kind of standard, I like to think of it as Necromunda style. They kind of kicked this off back in the early 90s with this. Anybody that's eliminated isn't dead, but you have to roll for them on casualties, right? You get benefits, you get experience points. And if a guy is badly injured, you have another 6 guys sitting on the bench that you can throw into the next scenario. But if you roll 2d12 on a casualty of war, he's permanently removed from the platoon. Replaced with another warrior with the same specialization. Oh, I don't know about that. All you're doing is resetting his experience points. I think it'd be a lot more interesting to see these elite, highly trained warriors just slowly whittled down as you go. And the solo scenario you have here, he's got some interesting solo mechanics. It's worth a whole video on its own, which we're probably going to do. We're running up against the like 20 to 25 minute mark here that people's eyes start to glaze over and they get sick of all my nonsense. But I will point out that he does have some interesting solo rules, and that's kind of how the campaign goes. Likewise, if we take a look at the Per to Per to Sci-Fi, when we talk about campaigns at the start of the campaign, he's got 6 missions in this sci-fi campaign. And again, you assemble a team of 10, and at the beginning of each session, one of the session, you pick your specialization for that time. And I think the way it works is, well, hold on. We should talk about the game start first, because this gets interesting. First, you pick your scenario. Then you pick your specialization. I think. We got to think about this. I'm thinking live here, which may be a mistake. But at the start of the game, usually what's going to happen is you're going to roll off to see who picks the deployment zone. All right? And I'll show those pretty pictures, right? So you're going to pick who's the attacker and defender. And maybe you just decide that. Or maybe you roll off for it. So that's one roll. Then you roll off to decide who puts the first figure down. Or I'm sorry. First you roll for which side. And then sometimes you'll roll off to decide who picks a deployment zone. So if this is an objective marker, and I know I'm the attacker and you're the defender, we may roll off, and whoever wins gets to pick where they're coming on the board from. Right? So terrain first. Then, would I assault from this direction or from this direction becomes important. Might not be a choice you get to make. So that's the second roll-off. And then the third roll-off is, who's got to put a guy down first? And you roll off to decide whether you go first or the other guy. Normally, I would suspect you want the other guy to go first so that you can adapt your plan based on his decision-making. I want to see where he's going to put his EOD guy. I'm going to hold back my sniper. If this is a kill mission, I got to take out your leader. I want to go last because I want to see where your leader is so I can deploy to take full advantage of terrain, right? That kind of thing. And that's where some of these specialties come into play. If you have a tactician, you get a bonus on one or more of those rolls. If you are a counterterrorism, you have a bonus on one or more of those rolls. And so whether you pick which expertise you pick may play a very important, like, what scenario you're choosing and whether you're the attacker or the defender plays a big role in what expertise you pick. So I'm kind of curious to see, and this is a question I'm not answering in this video. If you want to answer, just tune in later, or spend the money yourself. You're not broke. I hope you're not broke. I really hope you're not broke. I pray that the Lord takes care of you and that you're not suffering financially, because that would be bad. I feel bad for you. I want you guys to have enough money. Really, I hope the best for all of you guys. Point is, we'll have to discover this as we go on our own. Like, exactly when you choose this is going to be important. And it might actually specify in some of those scenarios that are included in these books. And again, like I said, classic Joe McCullough game design. We've got 6 missions here in this campaign, any one of which I think would be great on its own. Ungentlemanly Warriors. I'm not going to do World War II. Maybe I'll do a sci-fi campaign. Or maybe, actually, I think I got some modern figures. Maybe we'll use the modern figures for this. 6 missions, right? A lot of really good stuff in here. A lot of interesting stuff in the game. For those of you that have fast-forwarded here to the end, it's one of those very few stats, whole lot of skills to have to remember. 4v4, I think we're going to be okay playing two-fisted. There's only 8 figures on the board. Depending on how, we'll have to choose. Maybe we just go ahead and generate a scenario together using the system here. Spend an episode putting together a couple of teams, and then we just play a couple of these scenarios just to kind of find our footing before we get into the solo campaign. This may wind up being kind of a now. The channel right now has a black powder game. The Mauritius campaign is going on. Right. That's our Tuesday events. We have an AD&D solo campaign going on in real time, 1-to-1 time, the way it was meant to be played. That's our Saturday. I'm not quite prepared to turn Thursday's episodes into nothing but Rogue Warrior. This will sprinkle in some other one-offs, so expect this to last for a good long while. Set the expectations, right? We'll play through a couple of scenarios, and then we'll take a closer look at the solo rules. Right, so it's interesting cards and activations here. Oh, AI charts. Wow, that looks complicated. It looks worse than it is. I think once we play through a couple of turns, it'll make a lot more sense. And maybe we go ahead and start slapping on the sci-fi stuff. And this has things like psychers, sci guys, and big monsters. It adds big honking heavy beasts. The fat boys enter in. It adds some vehicles and giant stompy robots. And, all the things you'd expect, like weird teleportation, weird science, and weapons that are highly unstable and unpredictable, jump packs, all the staples, all the things you'd expect to see. Nothing too shocking, but all packaged up in a really nice, glossy, easy to follow, easy to build on package. I think we're really going to have a good time with this. I think this might be the sci-fi game I've been looking for, even if it's not perfect for everybody's favorite Cobalt 15. And where's his little buddy? Here he is. No, that's not his little buddy. Where's his little buddy? There he is. And the Magic Space Baby. We like the Magic Space Baby. I do happen to have a 4-man team, so maybe after maybe we'll play a standard modern game, and then we can play a standard sci-fi game before we dive into a reskinned Ungentlemanly Warriors, Rogue Warriors solo campaign. I don't know. Who knows? Life is uncertain. It's as uncertain as the games we play. Maybe that's why we play the games, to prepare for the uncertainty. It helps us stay cool, man. Stay level. Be good to each other out there, all right? Give it a look. If you think it sounds interesting based on what I saw, what I've seen here, and also check out the channel for skirmish games if you want to learn more. I'll try not to forget to put a link in the description. I said it here at the end of the video, so just as a reminder myself. And as a reminder for you, I'm praying for you.